All right, let's talk about the wide receivers here. And as we are recording this, there is definitely uncertainty with both of these units. Sami Watkins, I imagine that he's going to play, but he's still dealing with a calf injury that kept him sidelined in the divisional round and the conference championship. Demarcus Robinson is on the COVID-19 reserve list as a close contact. So it's tentatively expected that he will be activated and able to play in the Super Bowl, but that is not a certainty. And then Antonio Brown was actually listed as doubtful last week, although there certainly is time still for him to be healthy enough to at least suit up for the Super Bowl. So uncertainty with the wide receivers, but a lot of guys for us to talk about. Raybon, I'm going to kick it to you first. Tyreek Hill, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and then, of course, some of the other wide receivers, Mecole Hardman, Byron Pringle even, and then Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson. Anyone catch your eye from a prop perspective?
So talked about this we had a little first touchdown draft at Action Network, and it was a value draft, and I was up second, and I took the chalk in Tyreek Hill at 6-1, and you could get it even better at some books. I think we were using DraftKings odds, but that's kind of in line with his true odds. And I love Tyreek Hill as a first touchdown bet. You're still getting plus money there. And you look at Tyreek Hill, he's number 2 in the NFL in first quarter receiving touchdowns, first quarter targets. Since 2018, he's tied for the league lead in first quarter touchdowns. This year he's tied for the team lead with Kelsey, but he's very skewed to the second half of the year. And he scored 2 touchdowns before anyone else scored in the first meeting between these two teams. He's just so hard to stop, even when defensive coordinators are looking to take him away. So I like the kind of more exotic Tyreek Hill props. I think, anytime you're talking about yardage, it's going to be so volatile, especially because we still don't know what's going on with key players on both of these receiving cores. It's really hard for me to say, bet this yardage prop or bet that yardage prop. But I do think that, this is the highest, it's projected to be one of the highest scoring Super Bowls ever. So I think there's some good value to be had on some of these touchdown props, and they're going to be pretty fun to watch.
All right, Sean, I believe that we are kind of on opposite sides here of Tyreek Hill. Donkey than I am going over 91.5 yards receiving. I see that you are going under 6.5 receptions. Now, in theory, they both could hit, but that's not incredibly likely. Make the case for Tyreek Hill under 6.5 receptions, and then I will make the case for Tyreek Hill why I'm going over 91.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, so first off, I'm in line with Raybon here. I haven't locked any of these receiving props in. I'm waiting for the Demarcus Robinson news, Antonio Brown. There's all sorts of things swirling around, but I do think that we could both win our bets here. I love the under 6.5 just because of the value it provides. I don't want to root against Tyreek Hill in this matchup, but he's only gone over this number in 5 of 17 games. That's a 29% clip. Now, however, he's gone over this number each of the last 2 games and against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when he got 13 balls back in week 12. So that's probably what's feeding into a lot of the overaction here. And partly why I'm scared to bet it already. But, when it comes to a prop like this, you're right. I rather attack the under receptions than the under receiving yards for Tyreek because, he's a 7-yard touchdown waiting to happen. So I think that the way you do attack a player like this is you attack the median for receptions. So, yeah, I love the under 6.5 here. I could see the Buccaneers trying to shut down Tyreek Hill. And when I mean shut down, like 5 catches for 90 yards and allow, underneath passes to Travis Kelce. It's sort of a pick your poison scenario. But I think if the Buccaneers let Tyreek Hill get over 7 catches, they have some problems. So I think this is the only market I think you could bet against Tyreek Hill would be the under 6.5 receptions here at plus 114.
Yeah, everyone has a plan to stop Tyreek Hill, and then the game starts. I don't see how it's going to happen. I don't think that they have the cornerback who can hang with Tyreek Hill. I know that Jamel Dean, I believe he didn't play in week 12. And so they were at a disadvantage. He's the one guy in that secondary who really does have the speed. Like at the combine, he ran a 4.3 40 times. So he has the speed to hang with Hill, but that still doesn't mean he actually has like the actual corner cover skills to hang with Hill. And on top of that, the Chiefs are one of the best teams in the league at moving their guys across the formation anyway. So Jamel Dean plays almost exclusively on the outside. It's not as if he's going to follow Hill into the slot. So one way or another, I think we're going to see Hill get a ton of targets, and I think he's going to be going against guys who cannot cover him. And we saw in the Super Bowl last year, he had 16 targets. In the 2 playoff games this year, he has 21 targets. Against the Bucs in week 12, he had 15 targets, which he turned into a career best 13 receptions, 269 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Like the best guy, the best cover man that the Bucs have is in theory Carlton Davis, and he just got destroyed in 1 quarter of football by Tyreek Hill. Hill destroyed him so much that they basically just stopped using Davis in shadow coverage for the second half of the year. Like that's basically like how traumatized he was, that they were just like, okay, you just stand on that side of the field. Don't worry about following anyone anywhere. I think Hill is going to smash. So some of this is maybe narrative driven, but I just think from a matchup perspective, the Bucs don't have someone who can hang with him. And from the volume perspective of how Hill has been used in big games, like the targets, the share of targets that he's gotten in big games, I think he's going to get enough targets to go well over 91.5. Raybon, tell me why I'm wrong.
I don't think you're wrong. I mean, listen, I tried to caution Sean a little bit about Travis Kelce. I think it was last week. I get this 2 guys on the Chiefs, and they're just Patrick Mahomes is so good that, and they're so good that they could just get so much of the yards, and it creates such volatility here that I would rather just go under with like every other Chiefs player, like, you know, from the like Robinson to Hardman to Pringle. I mean, Pringle may be over, but Edwards-Helaire, Williams, like Tyreek Hill is just so explosive that it's tough. And this is also a 3-point spread. And yes, the Chiefs have been playing in some closer games down the stretch, but in comparison to their kind of 3-year average of expectations for Tyreek Hill, this is expected to be one of the closer games they play. And that's kind of lends itself to, receivers and quarterbacks having a, keep throwing it down the stretch, and maybe he gets another underneath one. So for me, it's more about, kind of attacking some of the role players, just because the Chiefs have shown us in these playoffs after, we kind of wondered, are they okay? They close the season out kind of shaky. Like they've really shown that they can get the ball to their premier playmakers. And the Bucs, by the way, allowed a 69% completion rate during the regular season, and that was 4th highest in the league. So even though the Bucs have, what's thought as a very talented defense, and they absolutely do, they are going to give up completions. They are not going to be able to play this like they played Breeze a couple of weeks ago and just press. They're going to have to, kind of play back and kind of. I don't think they're going to have nearly as much success as they did on Aaron Rodgers. So for me, it's overs or nothing with with the top guys on the Chiefs, Kelce and Hill.
All right. Well, I think one area where Sean would agree with you is the idea of taking some unders on these other guys. I know Sean and I are both looking under on Sami Watkins. I'm specifically under 36.5 yards. Sean, I believe you're under 36.5 yards as well, and also under on the receiving total. Talk about what you see there.
Yeah, with Sami Watkins, assuming he's going to play, I don't think he'll be close to 100%, or at least see the usage we're accustomed to when it comes to him. I think, they're going to have to get Hardman involved, and Pringle, we already talked about earlier, was heavily involved last week. So I think that's going to come at Watkins' expense. So yeah, I love the under 3.5 receptions and 36.5 receiving yards. Going back to Raybon with Tyreek Hill, I know that Tyreek Hill is good, okay? But you have to understand that, like, the money is flooding in on the over, and it's creeping up to 7.5 receptions now. So I would hope at 7.5 receptions, there's some resistance for you to at least consider the under. But when it comes to a guy like Watkins, I think he's going to be more of a decoy. I don't see him being involved too much. So I love his unders, but again, this depends on Demarcus Robinson's COVID test. If he's out, my projections for Watkins are going to go way up. So this is a hold for now.
Yeah. And obviously we have to wait and see what happens with Robinson. Sean, I think with the numbers out there right now, you actually might like Robinson a little bit. I hate Robinson. I'll just
right. Well, I hate Robinson as well, but my numbers say otherwise. That's always the case. So
yeah. So I would be betting under 1.5 receptions for Robinson if he's active, under 13.5 yards receiving. I mean, it's a very Friedman thing to trash a number 3, number 4 receiver on a team and just hammer the unders with him. Let's talk about the Buccaneers receivers. I'm almost just blanket undering these guys. And a big part of that is because of the scheme that the Chiefs run. They allowed the fewest receptions to wide receivers in the regular season, the second fewest yards. And Mike Evans scored 2 touchdowns against the Chiefs in Week 12, but had, I believe, just 50 yards receiving. I'm going under Mike Evans, 63.5 yards receiving, under Chris Godwin, 77.5 yards receiving. We have to wait and see what happens with Antonio Brown, because that might impact what happens with Scotty Miller and Tyler Johnson. But I'm thinking it's likelier than not that Brown plays. I might be wrong there. But if Brown plays, I'm certainly going under Scotty Miller. And I'm honestly just taking the under on Miller right now, because if Brown is active, then we're going to have worse numbers on Miller. So I'm going under Miller right now. But Sean, what are your thoughts on these Buccaneers wide receivers?
Yeah, I have a similar plan as you. I think I'm passing on Mike Evans. I'm in line with Evans, and if you're betting under on 3 of these receivers or tight ends, you need someone to step up. So I think I'll just pass on Evans altogether, and hopefully he puts up a 150-yard game, which will help these unders hit. But yeah, I'm under Godwin just based on the number. 77.5 is pretty high. There's nothing about the matchup that particularly scares me. But 77.5, if you look at the market, some books are at 71.5, some are at 73.5. So it's all over the place. So if you have access to 77.5, I would take the under now. But when it comes to Scotty Miller, it absolutely depends on if Antonio Brown's going to play. 20.5 seems pretty high. If Brown's in, I'm smashing that under all day. As well as the 1.5 receptions, you called that too. So I'm going to have the under on that. And then I guess the other guy I'm going to talk about is tight end, so I'll hold off on that. But yeah, so if I'm going to be attacking the Godwin under, the Miller under, and the Brady under, I think I will correlate that with the Brady passing yards from earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I actually do think it's somewhat of a tough matchup for Godwin. I remember early in the season, Raybon singing the praises of Algerius Sneed, who at the time was playing on the perimeter, and then now has been moved into the slot and has just really been a shutdown type of guy. Even though he's a mid-round rookie, he's looked really good. And so it's not an easy matchup for Godwin. He certainly will move around the formation a little bit. So it's not as if it's, locked down against Algerius Sneed the whole game, but I do think it's a tougher matchup for him. And I think it's a tough matchup just for all of these receivers in general. Raybon, where are you on the Buccaneers?
Yeah. So here's the thing, like it is a tougher matchup, statistically speaking. We have seen that the Chiefs for 2 years now under Steve Spagnuolo be able to funnel the football away from the perimeter. They play more cover 2 shell, according to Sports Info Solutions. If you look at the numbers, than pretty much any other team, whether it's zone, whether it's some cover 2 man. They obviously have Honey Badger, who they can kind of rotate between coming down to the line and playing deep. But you also have the situation where it's Tom Brady. There's a chance that the Chiefs could score points in a hurry in this one and get up big like they did in the last one. And passing yards aren't really there's a lot of empty passing yards going around the league these days. So I'm not really comfortable kind of backing the Bucks under just based on the pure numbers, because again, you have a situation where just looking at it objectively, the Bucks lost 5 games this year. 2 of them were to the Saints. No one else beat them by more than a field goal. So this is This is kind of on the spectrum. What a tough game still one of the tougher games for the Bucs, and they could just be throwing a football more. And like I had the Evans under last week, and I thought that was going to be money in the bank. And then he had 40 something yards in the first quarter. He still ended up going under because he dropped like 5 passes. But I think we've hit the Evans unders like 4 or 5 weeks in a row. I think going back, a bunch of us were on it. I think it might be the time to get off because this is a Super Bowl, and I don't really see as much value anymore. He's the volatility is just kind of 50-50 at this point where, even with one catch at this point, he may go over that. So I think Godwin's a little more feasible because you did see the Chiefs, with L'Jarius Sneed and with, don't forget, Honey Badger can play some slot corner. They limited Jarvis Landry to 20 yards on 10 targets in a comeback game script for the Cleveland Browns a couple of weeks ago in the playoffs. So I think Godwin would be the guy, but he's also tough because you plot his receiving yards this year against his expected receiving yards, and he must have dropped like 400 or 500 yards of passes over the past few games. I mean, it's nuts. So they're kind of both a little scary, but I lean towards Godwin and over Evans because you're kind of getting that split now where Godwin's had a great matchup last week. He exploited it. Evans dropped some balls, and you're seeing that split between them a little too high and higher than I think it should be.